In this list, I discuss the rise of medieval towns. What made towns grow during the Middle Ages? At the beginning of the Middle Ages, most people lived as peasants in the countryside. However, later in the Middle Ages, by about 1200, services were needed around castles and religious centers. This caused the rise in towns throughout Europe. In this list, I will discuss medieval towns, guilds, commerce, disease, and crime and punishment. First on this list are medieval towns. Improvements in agriculture and the growth of trade and commerce made medieval towns grow. The surpluses in crops created a situation where not everyone had to be a farmer. People could now specialize in different professions. Most medieval towns were surrounded by walls for protection and gates that let the people in and out. Streets were narrow and living conditions were filthy. There was little garbage collection and people threw their trash into the street and nearby canals. Disease and awful smells made life in medieval towns unpleasant. Second on the list is guilds. A guild is an organization in the same trade or craft. There are two types of guilds, a merchant guild and a trade guild. Guilds provided help and protection for people doing different types of professions. Guild members paid dues. If someone wanted to join a guild, they would have to become an apprentice at around the age of 12. After about 7 years, the apprentice would have to prove himself to the guild by building a masterpiece. This was a piece of work that proved they were worthy to join the guild. Afterwards, they could open their own shop, and if they did not have the resources, they could become a journeyman working for other masters. Third on the list is commerce. Now, sometimes commerce is interchanged with the word trade, but commerce includes other activities too, like warehousing, banking, and other such activities that facilitate trade. The definition for commerce is the exchange or buying and selling of commodities on a large scale involving transportation from place to place. An example of this would be the Hanseatic League, which was an organization created to make trade easier for medieval merchants. This was a powerful trading bloc in medieval Europe. Northern cities in the Baltic area, Scandinavia, and northern Germany were part of this league. Here's an example of the Hanseatic city of Hamburg. Here's one of Tallinn. And this third example is of Lübeck, which is a city in Germany. Large towns held markets that attracted a lot of people who would trade goods. Farmers would also come to sell their surplus crops. Merchants became wealthy and powerful through this activity, and they became another powerful social class in medieval Europe. I have a theory that you can tell what the most powerful organization is by looking in a city and seeing what the most prominent building is. Quickly, town halls became this most prominent building in many medieval cities, sometimes surpassing the castle and the cathedral in importance. Fourth on the list is disease. The main disease of the Middle Ages was known as the Black Death or bubonic plague. If you think COVID-19 is bad, consider that the bubonic plague killed nearly 1/3 of the population of Europe. Another disease that was not curable during the Middle Ages was leprosy. People who had leprosy were called lepers, and they were forced to live in isolated towns, away from the normal population. Hospitals were invented during the Middle Ages, but there were few of them. Treatments during the Middle Ages for disease were quite crude. For example, sick people were bled by having leeches suck their blood or through bloodletting. Other remedies were magic charms or herbs. Prayer and the studying of the positions of the stars were other ways that people tried to ward off disease. And last on this week's list, we have crime and punishment. Prisons were filthy, dark places, and many prisoners had to buy their own food. Trial by ordeal or combat was used to prove if someone was innocent or guilty. Trial by combat meant that an accused person had to fight to prove their innocence. Women and the elderly, and sometimes children, could call on a champion to fight in their place. This is depicted often in the TV show Game of Thrones. In trial by ordeal, someone had to pass a dangerous test to prove they were innocent, such as being thrown down a deep well. For lesser crimes, people were put in stocks and displayed publicly for hours. More serious crimes were punishable by hanging or by being burnt at the stake. Often these were done in front of large crowds. In review, I covered 5 topics: medieval towns, guilds, commerce, disease, and crime and punishment.